So how is everyone doing? Are we going to start like this? Okay. How is everyone doing again? Very cool. So thanks for coming for the last session in the day. It's 5 p.m., I know. It's a lot of work to come here. It's a big convention center. My name is Islam Goma. I'm one of the Microsoft PFEs. I'm happy to say that actually I have Steve and Robert. Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve Buchanan, Regional Solution Lead with Concurrency, System Center MVP for 3 years now.
Robert?
Hi,
thanks for coming.
My name is Robert Hillblom, and I'm also System Center MVP since, I think this is my 6th year now. So I'm very happy being here on stage delivering this session.
Very cool. Thanks. So we have a DPM book that has been written by Robert. It has a very real-world deployment about DPM. If you guys want to learn more about DPM and DPM 2012 please take a look in the book. So our session today, we're talking about a lot of things today. So if you already guys we're loaded for 15 minutes of Q&A. We actually, since we're the last session, so actually we'll maybe be able to extend it a little bit. So we have a DPM to Azure best practice. We have center monitoring, DPM backup as a service, which is BAAS. This is something new that maybe we haven't shown to anyone. You guys are the first crowd to see it. Then Robert will talk about real-world deployment and lesson learned. So I want to tell you that between three of us, when we opt in to present this session, we had maybe 25, 30 deployments of DPM, so it shows the best deployment of them. And all of them happened after actually the release of UR5 because it enabled a lot of features for us to connect with DPM and Azure. So I did actually show this session just in case if anyone doesn't know what Azure is, or if anyone first time to see what the Azure backup works. Anyone doesn't know what Azure is? I don't think so. Anyone? Thanks. Anyone using DPM to Azure today? Very cool.
Nice.
Anyone using Windows 2012 R2 to Azure? All right, I got some. So I just get this because I'm going to tell you, 1, you go subscription, 2, install agent, 3, registered, 4, the backup encryption data happen. I'll tell you all of this good, fine and dandy, but nothing works really straight until actually you have to understand what's happening. So yeah, I'm Microsoft PFE, but actually I was an MVP, and I should tell you the truth. So we came with the largest deployment that we have done. However, you can actually, if you're a small, medium business, all of this apply to you. So our first deployment was actually a big company that we have maybe 20 or 60, between 20 and 25 branch offices, and they have a head office. So the typical deployment was, I have in each branch office, I have a primary DPM, and for each primary DPM, I have a secondary DPM in the head office. And they do DPM replication, they need backup to tape. We talked to CTO and told me, listen, my requirements are retain backup for 35 years, eliminate the need for secondary DPM that I keep populating them in my data center, then eliminate the tape infrastructure they have. They had every single secondary DPM server sharing their fiber channel tape library. So that was a huge investment, a lot of infrastructure happening in US. So the solution was after UR5, and I'll tell you, before UR5, I couldn't stand up front of the customer and tell him, hey, I'll be able to offer you the solution. Like, I will not be able to because I couldn't offer 35 years of retention. After UR5, we unleashed this, and we have 99 years now. So before, we had 128 days, and we go and just people laugh on us because, what you're doing. So during this, I don't know if you guys have seen this error before. When you do the online backup, that was actually, you keep scratching your head and say, oh, what is this? And it's not documented. So I thought actually every deployment, I would choose what was the main issue that I figured out and found. Then after that, I'll talk to you about it. Maybe it will be a good tip for your deployment. So if you are familiar with something named Scratch Space, which is used by Mars, this is a new acronym that we came with for Microsoft Azure Recovery Services. This is the agent you download from Azure, and this would allow you to lift up all the data to Azure. The agent itself required 5%, as it says in the screenshot, see? So we actually want 5% scratch data to manipulate the data to upload to Azure. When we actually found this, we found actually that this 5% is not really enough. So what we really want is we want to increase it. Increasing the space, unfortunately, is not to go and tweak registry keys. No, it's actually you have to go and either increase the disk behind that or just uninstall the agent and install it and point to a new place. For example, it's going to be D data or whatever. So that's actually one of our deployments that actually went very well. Customer is happy. My second deployment is LTR protection with Azure. LTR stands for long-term retention, which is the CTO's requirement is I need an offsite backup. Sure, we can do this for you. Retaining 4 days of backup. I can do this for you since actually before UR5, I had 128. I was able to go tell him, OK, I can do this for you. But he told me, oh, I have tons of tons. I went over there and I actually have tapes stacked on shelves that need to get uploaded offsite. And he actually, even that we actually here in the United States, we have also capped on limited bandwidth. So the solution was for this guy was, OK, I can give you Azure. We are doing this since a long time ago, 28 days. I didn't tell him that, but we went with that. Then we use the offline seeding tools. Anyone know what's the offline seeding tools? All right, cool. Did you use it? No. All right. So I will show you to do today how to use it. It's a little bit typey and I have typed a little bit command, but it works very well. So when I was working on that, this is actually just to show you that I have now 99 years system since I'm happy with this. During the issue, I found that I have an intermittent issue that actually the online backup stops. Like you set up the online backup for DPM and stop in the middle. Anyone knows why? Anyone think about the reason? Right. So the funny reason is that we have an overlap schedule. When you schedule a 9 o'clock disk in DPM, and you schedule also 9 o'clock online backup, the online backup has a conflict and stop. So, all right, so I have sent a lot of colorful email between me and the engineers. But anyway, we had a workaround for this that actually just maybe for now, we should maybe change the online backup just to avoid 9 o'clock if this 9 o'clock is the right schedule for you on disk. But also, we have found that actually fail on subset backup is causing issues. Have you seen actually that actually when DPM starts lifting up the data to Azure, and after that it goes through, then stop. We found that actually some of the data cannot get uploaded to Azure. And when we kept looking, we found actually that we can change a registry file named maxed failed files. DPM has a set of 100 files that he can forgive. Say, actually, I have 100 files. If I don't back them up, I'm good. But if you have more than 100 files, this is a problem. So you actually can go in the registry, create this key, and create the maxed failed files, and change it to be a bigger number. This worked very well. So this was good. Now, I got my deployment number 3. Same requirement. I want to eliminate tape infrastructure. Every customer seen today in the booth say, I want to eliminate infrastructure. Looks like this is this familiar? You guys, you want to eliminate the backup, the tape infrastructure? All right. This is for you, right? So I'm really happy that actually I see deployment people saying, oh, I do have this issue. Like, I'm really happy that we chose the right ones. Need to upload existing tapes with limited bandwidth. And the existing tapes, we know that actually people before DPM appears on the market, they had other third-party software. And anyone using other software here? Don't be afraid. OK, cool.
We won't bite you, so.
Then retain 20 years of backup, then stop paying license for third party. All right, this has a story. When we talked to the backup team in the company, he told me, all right, you guys are offering now all this good stuff. We'll work with the offline seeding tools and all of that. But I still have my legacy tape. If you guys have been using one of those third-party tools for backup, you know that they actually read the data, encapsulate the data, use a different format, their own format, like BKF or BTL or whatever it is, right? Then we told him, OK, just get rid of your license. We'll be able to upload your data over there. He told me, yeah, but I cannot do that because I still have data with this format and I need to read it. So he still keeps paying the license for the product that actually he's doing the backup with. So what we have said, okay, so let's do this. Restore any existing data from those tapes using the current license that you have. We promise you, just do this only, support us and keep the license for 1 year, right? Restore them actually on disk, right? Or actually, you can actually, when you restore them on disk, you can back them up again with DPM, or we'll use the offline seeding tool. Then create a DPM/MARS. Again, MARS is actually Microsoft Azure Recovery Services Protection. And we actually, either we do it with DPM, and I'll show you how to do that, or we actually use it with the offline seeding tool. Then use the offline seeding tool to copy from staging. This is the data that actually we'll stage to ship it to Azure, either online or with the seeding tool. And we export it. Then we send the disk, right? Issues that we have a maximum data per data source. Anyone have seen this issue? I've seen a lot of people came in the booth asking me, okay, that's good. What are you going to do with 1.65 terabyte? The 1.65 terabyte data source limit that actually, if you have a VHDX today, you are backing up with DPM, and you want to upload it to Azure today, right? You cannot upload it. It's 1.65 terabyte. We are limited to that. This is a big deal. Not a big deal. I got the confirmation today. By July, we're actually increasing the space and will not be an issue at all. So this is going to get fixed by July, promised. Maybe give it to August sometimes for the holidays. So DPM engineering is currently working on eliminating this 1.65 terabyte. As long as we get an answer and promise, that will be done. Good. So what's the offline seeding tool to Azure? Anyone knows from the people that have seen it? So as the name says, get your data that's already on tape or disks that you want to upload it to Azure. Stage it. Use the Azure Data Import Expert for the offline seeding tool. This tool required a couple of things. Storage, in order to stage your data. BitLocker, that the machine that you need that will run the tool that have to have a BitLocker. Then your account for FedEx or UPS or your preferred courier. So those are the 3-step process. I'll go through this. Right? So this is just to go animation. This is a camion when it comes to pick up my disk. And then after that, it just a little bit crashed on the Azure, but that's OK. All right. All right, how are we going to do this? All right, demo time for me. All right. So in order to use the Azure backup, the Azure actually, the offline seeding tool, it is available. Let me move this to 7. Very good. All right. The tool named WA import export.exe. If you just go and look it up, Bing it, and look this actually on Bing, you'll be able to find the link. So what actually we are looking for is to do some prep work first on Azure. And if I can manage to get this here. So I did some pre-work for me. Let me close this. I create a storage account in Azure. And the storage account, I've created a container. So this is actually a couple click. You go subscribe Azure, create an Azure account, then create a container inside. What I really need from here is only the access key. By the way? Right. By the way, do not try to hack this because I will delete it right after the session. Right. So this is the key that I need. All right. Do I need anything else? I'm good, and I will show you. If I go here, later on, you'll see me creating an import job. With Azure offline seeding tool, we are not supporting exporting data from Azure yet, but hopefully that will happen soon. All right. So I'll go to my DPM server. And by the way, if you actually have the data already somewhere else than DPM, we're supporting this. So the tool, when you run it, you don't really need to run it on DPM. You can run it on another server. So I'll go, if the mouse helps me. All right. Is anyone familiar with this first?
It doesn't show.
Oh, it doesn't show. Sorry. All right. How is this? Right. Does anyone know this? This is actually a recovery, the protection group wizard. So you go, click, click, click. You choose the data source that you want to back up, and you go next, next, next. Then here's the information. I'll go quickly through this, which is this is the staging area. This is the data where we're gonna save it over there. Then this is my publish settings. The publish settings just you need to do one command that will show it to you in the end with PowerShell. Then this is the job name, which is you have to have it small letters. And this is my Azure subscription. Again, this will expire soon. Don't try to hack it. And the backup offline seeding tool, this is the storage account that I have created and the container name. Good? Once I say next, maybe because I changed it. Once I say next, you will see some data has been created. Let me show you this in here. So see, for every single data source, you'll see 2 files. Again, I'm not showing it. Right? One, which is the AIBB, or AIB blob, and the other one is the BAAS blob. The AIB blob is the metadata of the files, and the other one is the data source. Right? So I got all the information that I want here. So now I'll take you through, I got the staging area, the data that I want to encrypt and upload to Azure, and I get my empty disk. I will show you some limitation with this tool, but it's not really a limitation, it's just a requirement. All right, so I'll go through the syntax. You guys, do you see this? All right, so the syntax says command, and I need to put a GRN file. I need to save this file because it will have all my information that I need to feed it to Azure today. Then I need to have a session. If you have multiple disks that you need to ship them to Azure, and you have them in the same session, you're going to use the same session all over and over again. 10 disks, you're going to use this 10 times. Then this is the key that I did show it to you 2 minutes ago. And I'm saying format my E drive. This is the one that I will send it to Azure, and encrypt it with BitLocker. Then, and this is the destination file. If that doesn't work, I do have, by the way, a video. Hopefully that will work. So you're going to read this carefully with me. It says, OK, the hard drive that you need to send it is going to be 3.5 inch. Internal SATA 2, SATA 3. We're not supporting solid state, so do not spend money for nothing. And we're not supporting USB storage. Like actually, you get a USB disk, flash drive, and send it. We're not supporting this. Then I need, from all of this, I need to get a GRN file, which is a journal file. Right? I'm going to hit enter. Right? It tells me yes. I'll actually say yes. I need to do this, and I start doing this. Oh. All right. All right, maybe I can show you the video. It's just a syntax error. All right. So this is the, are we not showing this? Cool. No, this is not present. All right. There we go. So we stop in here and say, actually, this is my data. I'll say yes. Then once I say yes, I'll start verifying the E drive. I'll format it. Then once it's formatted that, it will try to encrypt it with BitLocker. Then we provide enabling BitLocker on the drive. Then this is the BitLocker key that you need to encrypt it anytime. And you go through the process of the copying the data and so on. Good. The last step that you need to do sorry, we're having mouse issue here. The last thing that you need to do, you need to create an import job tool. You say yes, and then next. Then you put your information. And you put an email address. Then you put an address here. Then you say next. Then this is the GRN file that you need to upload. I believe I do have one of them here. Say add. Say next. And you type the job name that actually we have it in here, which I believe was a offline seeding 1, 2, 3. Then you choose the East because actually my storage is in the East. Then here it prompts you with the preferred FedEx, and you put your account number, and it will provide here. As soon as actually you send this, maybe it will take a couple of days, then the data will be available in Azure, and after that, DPM will be able to sync automatically with that. With that, I actually leave my place I'll leave my place to Steve. We'll talk to you about the reporting in DPM and the new features DPM. Then I'll be back with everyone here for the Q&A. All right?
Thanks, Islam.
No problem.
So let's jump back to the PowerPoint here. Go ahead and start that. So before I start my session, we actually have some candy all the way from Sweden that Robert's going to hand out to you all to help
if you're getting tired, I have some sweets here. So is anyone tired?
We know it's late
Hands
in the
up.
afternoon.
No one? You are tired. Yeah, there you go. You're tired also? Here you go.
Sorry,
All
it's
right.
a little wet. We had a water
Keeping
issue
you up
up
in
here
shape,
earlier.
right?
So
Awesome.
I'm going to talk to you all about monitoring and reporting in DPM. By show of hands, how many of you have had like a IT manager, director come to you and ask you some of these questions about backup, or have needed to get this data for yourself? And by show of hands, how many of you have been able to actually get that from DPM reporting or monitoring? Okay, like one hand. So these are common questions really with any backup product, right? That you have when you have backups in your environment. So today, these have historically been like an issue with DPM, but today between SCOM and the new enhanced reporting, this is a lot better. It's improved. So I'm going to talk about SCOM first, then we'll dive into the reporting, and then I'll dive into a demo and actually show you a little bit of SCOM and how to modify like a custom report. So as far as SCOM, I have two images up here. The one labeled distributed application. Is anyone, by show of hands, who's using SCOM today in your environment? Okay.
Oh, good.
A lot of hands there. Good. How many of you are familiar with distributed applications? Awesome. So for those of you that aren't familiar with distributed applications, they're basically a map of your applications or your services in your environment, right? So as my good friend Robert likes to say a lot, think of DPM or backup as a service. And your DPM servers are an instance in that service. So the idea here is we bring our DPM servers, if we have more than one, into a distributed application so we can easily see what's going on with our DPM at all times. And in this DA, we're showing a couple of DPM servers and their databases. But essentially what you could do with this is bring in like the protected data sources. Or you could do this around your top tier 1 applications in your environment that you want to make sure they're backed up, right, as a part of your SLA. The other image on this slide is DPM dashboard, and this is something that I created, put it out there on TechNet Gallery, so you could actually go download that, load it in your SCOM environment. And what that is a dashboard that brings in data for your DPM servers, your protection groups, your data sources, your DPM servers, and it'll aggregate all your DPM servers in one view, as well as the infrastructure for your DPMs. So like your disks, health, and your tapes, right? And those objects are actually clickable, so you could dive down into the health if there's an issue on any of those. And when I take you into the demo, I'll show you that when you click on those, you actually get tasks too, so you can go beyond monitoring your DPM and actually manage it from Operations Manager. So for those of you that don't have SCOM in your environment today, you may be asking, well, do I really need SCOM for DPM? Best practice is if you have more than one DPM server, put in SCOM, bring DPM into your SCOM environment. It's going to help you centralize the monitoring and management of it. So on this slide here is the old, well, it's still current, but this is the original out-of-the-box reporting, the 6 reports. How many of you, by show of hands, have struggled with these reports? A lot of hands. So with these reports, some of the issues with these reports, right, it's per DPM server only. So if you have multiple DPM servers, that's just really bad for your reporting, right? Because you don't want to have to RDP out to each DPM server, run a report, and do all that stuff, right? And you cannot get the data that you actually need, right, that helps you answer those questions that we had on that first slide. Questions like how much data was transferred, right, per backup, how long did it take, right? Those are critical pieces of information that you want to know. And then some of the reports are they're really hard to read, right? Like the protection report. You open that up, there's an A if there's a recovery point, there's not if there isn't one, right? Try to hand that to a manager and say, here's our backups, here's the health, right? They'll give it back to you, this is too complicated, I can't use it. And they weren't easy to customize, right? You had the SQL views, so you could go in and try to make those reports, but the SQL views weren't documented that well, and they didn't really pull in the data that you needed, right? Another community thing that I did was I teamed up with a buddy of mine that's a business intelligence expert, and we created a DPM summary report. Some of you may have used it, but in that report, we actually had to build stored procedures to pull in some of the data that we needed to be on that report. So we weren't able to use SQL views for all of the data that's on that report. And that's not officially supported by Microsoft. So they want you to use the SQL views. The other issue with the old reporting is that there just isn't any SLAs. So now fast forward to the new reporting, and the DPM team, after I put out that summary report in the community, they really saw that reporting was a big issue, and it's been an issue with DPM for a very long time, and they decided to actually do something about it, which is awesome. So they built the new enhanced reporting. And when they were talking to us about, okay, how do we go about building this reporting, we all told them, bring it into SCOM. Because if you bring it into SCOM, it aggregates your DPM servers, right? So you're not stuck with one single DPM server anymore. We also told them basically we need SLAs, right? There is SLAs in backup. That is a thing, right? So it'd be good if we could actually report on that in DPM and give that to our management. And then the SQL views was a big problem in creating custom reports. So what they did is they actually built new SQL views. They documented them. They're out on TechNet. They're very well documented, and they actually pull in data that's useful that you can use on your actual report. So now what you're seeing in that image, and I'll actually show you that report, is the new executive summary report. So it's pulling in data like SLA, how much data was transferred per backup last night, how are my Hyper-V backups doing, or my SharePoint backups and things like that. It's pulling all that data onto that report. And that is customizable, by the way. So go to the next slide. So we just looked at the new reporting and the out-of-the-box report that you get with the enhanced reporting. So what does it take to get that reporting? Here's the list. I'm not going to cover all of those, but I'm planning to post a very detailed blog that walks you through how to actually deploy the new reporting. And there is a certain order and steps that you want to follow. Otherwise, you could hose up your SCOM server. But some items that are critical to pay attention to are your DPM servers in your central console. Those need to be on UR5. Okay? And you need to bring in the UR5 management packs for DPM in your SCOM environment. If you want SLAs, which is totally optional, you need to configure that on your DPM servers, and you use this PowerShell commandlet. That's something that's new with UR5. So that's part of the reason why you need to run the UR5 on your DPM servers. Now, with that, it's per DPM server per protection group. So if you have, 5 protection groups with different things like SharePoint, Exchange, et cetera, you need to go configure the SLA per protection group. And if you want the dedupe report, there's a separate MP for that you bring into SCOM, but the file services management pack is a prereq for that. So for custom reporting, what you need, here's the list right here. So basically, of course, you need SCOM, you need DPM, right? In your environment, you need the UR5, you need everything up to date. You need access to those SQL DPM views. So if you're going to delegate access to, say, someone else to create these reports, you need to make sure they have access to the SCOM data warehouse. You need a report builder tool, right? So you can use the default out-of-the-box SSRS tool, which is a report builder, or you could use SQL data tools, which is more advanced. You need a data source, data set, and then you go ahead and save the reports to SSRS. Once they're in there, you can actually access those via the SCOM console. So one of the issues with the report that I created for the community is that you couldn't actually access that report via the DPM console. You had to go to SSRS, SQL Reporting Services, to access that. So that was a big issue. And last is go out and read the System Center Reporting Cookbook. And we actually have one over here. We're planning to give it away during the Q&A to whoever asks the best question. And 2 of the authors from the book are actually in the audience. Sam and Dieter, why don't you stand up? They're in the back over here. So if you guys have any reporting questions, you can direct it to them, or you can ask me at the end of the session. So now I'm going to take you into the demo, and we'll actually take a look at the custom reporting. And you guys will have to bear with me. It looked like we had some resolution issues. Is there any way to make that bigger? We'll worry about it later. So So this is the DPM dashboard here, and it doesn't look that great because of our resolution, but you can kind of get the idea, right? So if you click on these objects in here, you get these tasks over here, right? So right now I'm on a data source. I can create a recovery point. I can run a consistency check. If I click on my DPM server down here, I can manage DPM. If I was to click on the disks, I could scan for new disks. So the idea here is that you can actually manage your DPM server right from SCOM. So if you have like 30 DPM servers, this is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. So more than one DPM server, I recommend putting this in your environment. So here's an example of pulling up the DPM server right here from SCOM. So you get the full console, and you can work with DPM right from there. Here's another example of like pulling up jobs on a DPM server, right? So you can see what's happening on your DPM server. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the reporting. And now, after you have UR5, you got the new DPM management packs loaded in your SCOM environment, you come down here to the reporting workspace, and you'll see the new DPM reporting, right? And here's your DPM executive summary report. Something else to note here is we have this custom DPM reports. That's just a folder that I created in SSRS. It shows up right in the SCOM console. So that's awesome. You don't have to do anything special for that. So you just click on that, open it, and I already have it open here, so we don't have to sit here and wait for it to spin and open. And here is the actual report. And as you can see, it lists out your DPM servers. So it aggregates the servers for you. So if you only want to see this data for one server, you uncheck whatever DPM servers you don't want to see. You click Run, right? You choose your date range, and you run that, and it'll show that data. You can see here, that it's showing us savings from our dedupe, which is something that's new to DPM as well. Here's our SLA data. Here's failures, data transferred, and backup duration, right? And then here's where you get success or failures around your specific workloads that you're backing up. So something I want to point out here on this report is that, we actually have data populating in here in this chart, but it says other. So we don't actually know what these failures are or what they're for. So I'm going to create a report that will list out the backup jobs and the failures so you can see those, and then we're going to link on that main report to the new custom report that we're going to create. So this tool right here, it's kind of hard to see because of the resolution, but this is Report Builder. So what you need to do to open that up is you go to SQL Server Reporting Services, you click on this Report Builder. It'll open that up. And then you could create a new report, or you can open an existing report. And this is one that I already had. So when I talked about what you need for custom reporting, I talked about data sources and I talked about data sets. So the data source is a connection back to your database. We are getting our data from the SCOM data warehouse, so we need a connection to that database. And if you were setting this up from scratch, you would just come in here, put in the server name wherever your SQL instance is, right? And then you get a drop-down where you can select the database. Then you pull that in. Now you have to create a data set, right? So you could add the data set. This is the wizard you get. You choose your data source. We have it embedded in our report here. And you click on this query designer. When that opens up, you'll have a table called SCDPM. This is where those new SQL views are stored. So expand views, and this is where they are. And these are all documented out on TechNet. You can go search for them. see what they actually mean. So you have the top one was backups. Here's data sources, right? We have our SLAs down here, which actually has a view for Azure backup right there, cloud recovery. Right, so I already have some stuff selected. So to make sure the data actually comes back, you can click on Run Query, make sure data populates, then you know you have what you need, and then click OK. So in this report here, I just have a header, I have a table in the middle here with some of my data sets in it, and then a footer. So I have everything I need, except for I want to know what DPM server this data is coming from, right? So I'm just going to drag that over from the data sets over here. I'm going to drag over the DPM server name. You see that blue line? That means it's going to expand to a new column. So just create a new column for DPM server name. Right? So now that'll show up on our report. And then I want to know the execution state. This is critical, right? I need to know if it succeeded or if it failed. So I'm going to pull in that data set. And that's our execution state, right? So if I were to run this report right now, you'd get a bunch of numbers. You'd get like 2s, 3s, 0s, 1s. You don't really know what those are. So we want to make this visual so it's easy to read for someone. So what I'm going to do is put an indicator on this execution state. So the nice, red, green, yellow, right? So we put that out there. We notice the background for that column, for that field there, is white. So we want to make that match with the rest of the report. So I have the properties of that actual field there, and I'll just click on the drop down, make it gray so it matches with the rest of the report. And then the last thing we need to do to this indicator is tell it how it's going to measure and populate an actual image, the state, right? So we come into the properties of that indicator. We're going to change it to numeric, and then we'll put in the state numbers that we need. And again, these numbers they're documented in the SQL views. So you can go out there and see what they mean. So we click that. That's done. And you saw it changed right there. So now, to actually get this report to show up in SCOM, we need to go ahead and save that out to our SQL reporting services. So you can see that I'm already here, right? And I'm going to overwrite the report that's actually there. So that's out there now. Now what we need to do is open the other report, modify it, and make it so it's clickable so you can drill down into this custom report we just created. So all I did there was I opened a copy of the default executive summary report. I'm going to modify that there. So I right-clicked on the text field, the header for that field that shows the backup errors. I go into the properties. I come down to action here, click on Go to Report, and I can go ahead and browse out to any report that's on my SSRS. Right, so this is very easy stuff, actually, if you just dive into it. I'm not a SQL guy. I'm an IT pro, and this is easy for me to do. So, and then I need to save that report back out on SSRS, and then I'll jump over to the SCOM console and click on Custom DPM Reports. Now, let's go ahead and run that, make sure it all works. And then we can drill down into the details report. So we'll run that. Okay, so there's our data. There's our summary report, right? And now this item here is clickable. And there's our report. So pretty easy, right? And there I modified like a copy of the executive summary report. You could actually go in and modify the out-of-the-box report for whatever your needs are. Right? All they are RDL files.
So no need from database support guy or DBA helping
So that concludes my demo. I'm going to turn it over to Robert here, and we're going to talk about backup as a service.
We sure will. So are you guys still awake? Yeah? Come on. Good. So backup as a service, what is that? Anyone ever heard of it? Yes or no? Yes-ish? Yes? Okay, cool. So what you're about to see now is something that me, Steve, and Islam had the great pleasure of working with the developers at Microsoft. This is something that is still under, we're building this still. So this is not even beta that we will show. This is something, I don't know.
Very, very early stages.
Very early.
There's no ETA on when it will be available, but it is coming very soon.
Yes.
So that's all we're allowed to say.
Yeah.
So Robert, why would anyone want backup as a service?
Well, good question. So let's sort that out. So why BAAS? First things first, why should you build services? Building services is more or less about two things: achieve standardization and structured processes. How many of you guys are service provider or EPG customer? Okay. So when you provide your services for the consumer, it is important that you have the standardization, you have processes, and documentation, right? So building services is all about that. Also, when you build the actual service, don't be afraid to use different on-prem solutions or your hybrid cloud, private cloud, or public cloud for provisioning the service. What that actually gives you in the end is value-added services, right?
Now, how would we deploy BAAS based on DPM?
So regarding the deployment with BAAS, the thing is, for BAAS to work, you need to have DPM servers provisioned in your data center, okay? So there are different ways of doing this. There's two different ways. You guys are familiar with service templates? Yes or no? Okay, cool. So building service templates in VMM is a great way of doing this. Since every DPM server is an instance to the actual BAAS, meaning when you need more resource, go to VMM and deploy a new DPM server. There you go. Now you got more resources in your DPM for your BAAS. Anyone heard of the pre-prep VHD, VHDX file that Microsoft built? Anyone, yes or no?
One hand?
You are so quiet. Are you afraid? Some may not. Okay. So what that is actually a VHD or VHDX file pre-prepped with Windows Server 2012 R2 and System Center Data Protection Manager 2012 R2 with Object Rollup 4, which means that use that for provisioning your DPM servers in your data center. So talking about the different what's self-service DPM BAAS, Steve's going to cover some material on that, right?
Yeah. So what is this new backup as a service? Well, first let me talk about kind of the history of DPM in Microsoft's private cloud story. So DPM has always been a part of Microsoft's private cloud, but it's been in the background, right? It's protecting the fabric. It's also protecting some of your customers, your tenant workloads, things like their virtual machines, their websites, SQL databases, etc. So this new backup as a service is basically BAAS in Azure Pack that's powered by Data Protection Manager. So there's a screenshot of what it looks like, and we're actually going to show you BAAS in the demo. But what this does is it brings DPM to the forefront of that Microsoft private cloud story. So, and as we stated, it's in its very, very early stages. Right now, it only does virtual machine backup, but if you see a need to extend this to things like SQL or websites or other things that you can light up in Azure Pack, send us feedback.
Please.
We'll push that up to Microsoft and try to get those things included in the actual release or maybe a future edition.
And as we were saying before, when you build services, you integrate different components, right? Like VMM, SCOM, Azure, and so on and so forth. So what are the actual components for the BAAS?
Yeah, so here are the actual components that make up the backup as a service. So of course you need DPM, right? Either one or many DPM servers. You need virtual machine manager with Hyper-V underneath, right? Powering those virtual machines. You need SPF to provide the communications there. You need Azure Pack to be that portal, and you need the new DPM BAAS resource provider. And that's what actually brings BAAS into Azure Pack. So now, we talked about the components. Let's look at the architecture layers, right? So at the top layer, you have Azure Pack. On the second layer, you have the BAAS resource provider, but you also have VM Cloud's resource provider. How many of you are familiar with Azure Pack or are using it today in your environment? Okay. So you understand, a few of you understand, know what the VM Cloud's resource provider is. The backup resource provider needs to be tied with the VM Cloud provider. That way it knows what virtual machines belong to what cloud, go with what tenant, etc. Right? So you can't have the BAAS VM resource provider just by itself. And then on the next layer, you have SPF, right? That talks to virtual machine manager. It has Hyper-V and your cloud management, and then your SPF config database. And then you have DPM on that layer as well, where it's actually doing the protection of the virtual machines. And then you have, if you have Azure Backup in your DPM on your protection groups, this will support that actually. And then there's a new VM database for the BAAS that gets deployed to your Azure Pack when you install this resource provider. That stores all the settings and data around what clouds are we protecting and what VMs in those clouds and what plans do we have, et cetera, right? And then you have SCOM that's collecting usage data and pushing that up.
So maybe, Michael, I know that there is questions, but how about leave it to the end of the session? Is it okay? Cool, thanks.
So we talked about components, architecture. We talked about what BAAS is. You know, there's a couple of different perspectives to BAAS, and I'm going to turn it over to Robert to go through those.
Yeah. So actually, there's, of course, two of them. The admin perspective and the tenant. And we're going to start with the admin, OK? So as Steve mentioned, what you need to do is you need to have DPM installed, right? And you need to have the DPM agents installed on the Hyper-V host. And if you have a large environment, we have also the scale out feature, so we can protect large Hyper-V cluster environments. When it comes to what you can do or what you not can do with BAAS currently, this is an optional thing actually, but we do recommend it. You can add your DPM server or servers to a group that is the same thing as a plan in your WAP. And with those, with the plan, or like the server group is more a collection of DPM servers that is logically go together, meaning that they're usually back up the same set of Hyper-V hosts.
And Robert, can we apply like policies around groups that will apply to?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yes, and here's the thing. Some of you guys were service providers, right? Yeah? This means that why don't you make a group for each customer? Because each group will have their own policy, their own backup policy, and you can control that. And as you guys see down here, we have something regarding monitor for users in metering. And there's some things here that we don't see in DPM currently today, but we have now. Like the retention dates is going to populate beautifully, the number of restore points, and most importantly, the size used. So that's really, really nice. So setting this up, it starts with you providing a group name. And when you have the group name, you insert the DPM server name. In this case, it's server 5.
What? Is that a Sweden thing? Boring name?
Swedish boring name? No. When you deploy BAAS, you deploy it at scale, right? Meaning that you have a base name and you just index the DPM servers. So when you need it, you just scale it. A new DPM server's needed, go to VMM, bam, enter the service template, deploy it. And there you go. And then you just add into the group, and it will take ownership of new VMs that will need protection. Further on, we start with the virtual machine backups. And as you guys can see here, this is a quite nice thing. What this means is, as a service provider, you can say that, OK, customer 1 or A or X or whatever can have 20 VMs within this group. Or you can maybe charge them a little bit extra.
So I could take that and say you can back up like 10 virtual machines. And if you want to back up more than that, I'm going to charge you extra per virtual machine?
Of course.
Awesome.
And you can go with unlimited, that Steve did in my lab and crashed the lab
I almost
yesterday.
blew up Robert's lab.
But we are friends now. We sorted that out. So when you, let's see, down there you have the modify link, and you define the backup schedule. And this looks quite familiar for those DPM admins in the audience, right? Yes or no? Rings a bell? See you guys nodding. Good. This should absolutely ring a bell because this is straight off from the DPM GUI.
Look familiar?
Do you like it? Yes or no? Yes? Good. Good. So you're able to here per group collocate the data, automatically grow the volumes, time of day, and this is a real nice thing here, right here. Allow tenant created restore points, meaning you can control. If me as a tenant will be able to do my own restore points. That is something, right?
Yeah. That's a great feature.
So, and also down here, here's the thing regarding the measuring. You have the protection group count, the virtual machine, and the total allocated size.
And that, you know, with that, like, we don't have that in DPM today,
No,
right?
no, we don't. We don't.
So that's awesome to be able to get some monitoring and reporting there built into this.
Totally.
New
So
feature.
from a tenant perspective, you can do 4 things. You can add, you can do a backup, you can do restore, and you can remove. And how convenient that you have made a lab and demo of it, right? So let's go to demo mode, and Steve will show it.
So we're going to show you like the tenant perspective here. And again, that doesn't look so bad here on the bad resolution. So,
Working hard.
So here's the VM backup. This is the tenant perspective. So I'm logged in as a tenant right now to the service management portal. You can see that I have 3 virtual machines that are running in my private cloud. This one has 2 recovery points already, and this one has 4. This one's not protected. So in order to protect this, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and click on Protect VM. And you choose yes. And what happens, if it's the first VM that will be protected in a group, it'll go ahead and create a new protection group based on the subscription ID for that tenant. So that's going to go out. Let's try it again here. So that'll go out, there we go, and add it to our DPM protection group. So we already have one here, so it's just adding it to an existing group. But you can see the status changed here, right? On this one, I can click on Backup VM. And remember, Robert showed that setting where you can allow this or not allow it. And this will actually go in DPM and create a recovery point. And then if we wanted to restore our virtual machine, we can highlight the virtual machine, click on Restore VM. Gives us this little dialog and shows us all of our recovery points. So we could choose the recovery point we want, and then click this checkbox, and it'll go ahead and recover that virtual machine for us. So no need to call IT or the service provider or anything like that. As a tenant, you just do it yourself. And then if you want to remove a virtual machine from protection, and it's actually grayed out, backup failed on this one, so we get our remove protection back. We could click that and go ahead and remove it from protection. So it'll remove that virtual machine. So.
And this is really, really early bits.
Yeah, so this is super early. It's actually still under development.
So there will be more features added and maybe also some features removed?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you all have ideas or feedback about this, send them now. It's a great time to get them into Microsoft while it's still under development.
Can we keep the question to the end? Thumbs up. Awesome.
So that concludes my demo. I'm going to turn it over to Robert to
Yeah.
talk about real-world deployments with
Yeah,
DPM.
real-world deployments. I've been working with the DPM, most of us have, since 2006, the first version. So we would love to share with you our experiences, the pitfalls, what you should do, should not do, and so on and so forth. Okay? So first thing first, when you go out there and build something, build a backup solution, what is really important? Is it protection or recovery? I'm asking you. Shout it out, the answer. Anyone? Recovery. Yes. Good. That goes for Swedish candy. Good. Swedish candy to you, sir. Awesome. So, yeah, it's all about recovery. And why is that?
Remind him later.
The thing is, if you start just deploying software and setting up your backup, you will end up with doing backup of everything. Is every server in your data center equivalently important? Yes or no? More or less, okay, bummer.
we got an answer.
Depends on who you ask.
Depends who you ask, of course. But maybe-ish, some server, one or two perhaps, is not that important than the rest of them, right? So what it comes down to is when you start focusing on the recovery, then you are able to understand, okay, when I build my backup strategy, it comes up with actually not depending on a single product. Maybe you use Azure Backup only, or DPM, or whatever, to build your strategy. Understand the limits. I do a lot of consultant work globally, and the foremost thing that I bump into is people running like DPM servers on 4 gigabit of RAM, 1 CPU, and a SQL that is not that good tuned. And they say, Robert, it is a horrible experience. And I go, yes, I understand. So scale it, all right? Before you deploy something, just try to understand how much do I actually need. Maybe I need 4 gig, 8 gig, 12 gig, or whatever, just as an example. So understand the limits. And that goes also with SQL. If you have a poorly implemented SQL, that will end you up with a very bad experience, regardless of the systems in your product. So keep that in mind. How many of you guys and girls have SLAs? Hands up. Good. What I hear or get a lot is when I ask people, do you have service level agreements? They go, yes, of course, we've got that, Robert. We've got that covered. Okay, good, thumbs up. Can I read it? Can you give me a printed copy? No. Okay, what's that? Well, we have a ish SLA that is best effort. So when it comes to designing or starting service level agreements, start simple. That's the best advice. Don't do advanced stuff. Keep it simple. Ever heard of RTO, RPO, and RLO? And those are not Star Wars figures, okay? Not R2-D2. But anyone heard of RTO? What is that? Anyone? Oh, you just want some Swedish candy. I knew it. I knew it. You catch? There you go. Yes, that's right. Recovery time objective, recovery point objective, and recovery level objectives. And why is this important? Anyone? And you want some Swedish candy also. Good, good, good. Now we're talking. Ready? Okay, here you go. Oh, almost. That's true. That is how you should build up your backup strategy, because if you know what time objectives you have, like this is 4 hours, this is 8 hours, this is 24, this is 1 week, then you know the backup strategy, right? Yeah. But many, many companies are rushing into it, just starting to deploy, do stuff, and the outcome is not that good, not so positive. Disaster recovery planning. I do a lot of business continuity work, helping people, understand the actual what is important, what is not, how can we map that into a business continuity plan. And for your tier 1 applications, anyone doesn't know what the different tiers? Everyone is familiar with tier 1 applications? Yes? Okay, thumbs up. So your tier 1 applications, they need to go offsite somewhere, right? And as Steve and Islam mentioned, within the UR5, we can have it up for 99 years. You don't need tape anymore, not for every tier 1 application data. There may, of course, be some differences, of course, but try to put and use Azure. Proof of concept. This is my favorite. This is, bam, the one. So how many of you guys have done proof of concept installations? Hands up. Wow. How many of you guys have just turned them into production? Hands up. Oh, that hurts. And yeah, I had this hoster in Europe who called me and said, Robert, can you help us set up a proof of concept with BAAS? Of course. And I jumped on the airplane, flew down. I also brought some Swedish cinnamon buns. Those are really, you should try them. And we set it up. I did the training with them and flew back home to Sweden. 1 year later, the charming CEO of that company calls me and says, Robert, could you help us? Of course. What's the deal? What's the problem? Well, the thing is, quite embarrassing. No, it's okay. What is it? So the thing is, we were so satisfied with the setup of DPM. It was working like a charm. So we thought that, why don't we just put it in production? So they did, and it started, it just failed. Why did it fail? The thing is, a proof of concept installation is never scaled for production. Keep that in mind. Because before you start deploying something, before you start implementing something, you must have a plan, a strategy. And that is the question I get a lot. Where should I start? So the thing is, this is regardless of the product, actually. But this is very, very important. So what is your current situation? Do you have actually any demands or goals regarding restore? Not backup. We're talking restore, recovery. Because if you have a plan from that, you can build a scenario for the restore. Because that will give you the backup strategy. All right? Then you will know that, I can use Windows Server Backup, I can use DPM, I can use Azure, I can use Hyper-V Replica, I can use whatever components and build my service. Okay? Provide a structure, meaning that use processes and start having routines. How many of you guys are doing restore tests? Raise your hands. Oh, good. I'm so glad there's more than just one. So restore test is so important. That's a great example of the routine that you should have. Because, and this is, the thing that I hear a lot is, we don't have time for it. Well, guess what? You don't need to have time for it. You can automate it, and you can build a report. We have a reporting framework that Steve showed. So we can build a report regarding the success or failures of that restore test. And you can have that automated. So the way to success is actually understanding your business. And as I were trying to, with the gentleman here in the front, say that classify your services and their data dependencies, all right? So what is important and what is not? And you know what? The thing that is always, and I mean it, always lacking is documentation. Because it's boring, right? So, but it is so important. You must do it, all right? Then you can start building your restore scenario. And from the restore scenario comes the actual backup strategy. And then you build your backup solution. Where? Of those 3 bullet points here, boys and girls, where do they start, people? Where do you think? At the top or at the bottom?
I go sideways.
They should do. They should do, but they start down here. And then they realize that, oh, that was not good. So they go up there and redo it. And that is not good because that costs you a lot of money, right? Costs you a lot of money. So how many of you guys are using DPM today? Show of hands. Okay, some of you are not. So, okay, cool. So why should you migrate to DPM then? I'll give you 4 points. It is simple. DPM is simplicity in a nutshell. So it doesn't add any extra layer of complexity. How many of you guys have been working with business continuity? Hands up. So you know that one pillar of the business continuity plan is not add complexity, right? You don't do that with DPM because it will understand the underlying and work with the underlying architecture and framework of the Microsoft products. It does it really, really well, and it's easy to configure. It will scale for the cloud, meaning that with the scale-out protection, you're able to protect large, and I mean large, Hyper-V cluster environments, really large. And each DPM service that you deploy will be an instance to your BAAS. Either you use the VAP that we showed here, or you build your own. You can build your own and get some knowledge and then jump over and use that one in WAP. That's OK. Integration. It integrates beautifully with other System Center products, and most importantly, Azure. And as we spoke now, we have 99 years in Azure now. You should try it out. Of course, there's challenges, but Shirish, where are you? There you are. That's the man to blame. Not me pointing you out.
You got Swedish candy too.
But Shirish and his team are very highly committed on solving the 1.65 terabytes thing. All right? So the progress of DPM so far, here's the thing. Was it, I think, 1 year or 1.5 years, Shirish and his guys joined the DPM team, and all of us were very, very happy because the progress of DPM so far has done a rocket launch. I really mean it. There's so much feature, there's so much gaps that have been fixed, so they're doing a great job. We have the private cloud story. We have the hybrid cloud story. We have new capabilities like deduplication, Linux. We have certification processes also. When it comes to having supported scenarios for appliance VDLs and running backups on virtual OS that runs on VMware. And you should animate this, Islam. You missed it. Darn. But what is coming is we will provide backup for VMware. So where's the applause? Yes, there you go.
So with that, you'll be able to actually back up your virtual machines that are running on your VMware.
Yes.
Which has been a huge ask.
Yeah.
In the community and from customers for a very long time. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. And this, I do want to emphasize this. This is just the start of this great team doing a fantastic job. You will and you can expect so much more because more things are coming. More things are coming. If you want to attend other good sessions, here's a list of them. Please take pictures, write it down, or what is your preferred way of document it. Different resources. For this session, you have 2 books. Sam and his buddy down in the corner, their book, and also the book I wrote. It is not, I have 3 of those on ebooks. So if you want one, come up with me and I can give you an ebook, so to speak. Cool. So then leads us up to the Q&A.
Cool.
And what is important with the question and answers is that either you go and ask it in the mic or we just repeat the question. So, sir. So the question was, regarding BAAS, will it be supported
Can
for
we get you all to ask questions on the mic too?
But I'm repeating it.
Oh,
so
okay.
Sorry. So the question was, will we have item level recovery in the BAAS? And right now, we haven't discussed it, but it's awesome feedback.
Great feedback.
Yeah, love it. So we'll take that to Microsoft, and we do everything to satisfy it, right? Good. Yes, sir.
So Steve, on your slide, you had one of the prerequisites for reporting was DPM enhanced report. Is that a separate like MSI, or is DPM enhanced reporting part of CU
5?
The DPM enhanced reporting is a part of the UR5.
UR5.
And basically what it is several like management packs.
Okay.
So you have your default DPM management packs that bring in like your DPM views and stuff and the tasks, right, that you saw in SCOM. And then you now have a new management pack that is a reporting management pack.
So when you create your, I forget what it's called, your central server,
Central council, yep.
you imported, I think, just one management pack. So now with the cumulative update or update roll-up, you have to import much more management packs?
Yeah, it's just 2 extra management packs. So the
Okay.
reporting management pack, and if you want the dedupe, there's an MP for that too.
And those reports automatically get created with the import?
Yep, the executive summary report is their default out of the box.
Last question. You modified an existing report in SSRS. Is that recommended? Or I always freak out when I do that because I'm afraid that if a service pack comes in, it's just going to wipe it out. So I always copy it and then modify.
So-
is there a recommendation there?
I wouldn't necessarily do that in the real world. I just did that for
Right.
this today for demo purposes.
Okay.
Right? And what I did actually, I didn't want to touch the default, so I made a copy of it. It's just an RDL file, and
So
I
you agree with
modified
that
that.
principle? Take a copy.
Yep.
Of the, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right. Just for the recording, I know that we failed in the seeding tool. Just I'll try to do this with last time. The problem is if I have already an Ignite journal, the journal file exists already, so the tool fails. So if I try it again, it should actually work. So I'll say yes. And the problem is because I already have this, but still, anyway, I don't know what's happening. I thought about it. It's still, I didn't figure it out. So yeah, anyway. So if the journal file exists, this is a problem, right?
Okay, so we had 2 questions. The first one is there. Multiple questions. We'll love it.
You said that you wanted services from VMM to work with BAAS, to do BAAS, but services from VMM is not supported in BAAS.
Yeah,
wanna repeat
taking
that?
talking to the mic. I'm glad that Shrish is here.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. You said that you needed services from VMM to do BAAS in WAP, but services in VMM is not supported. In WAP, there you have VM roles instead, and those are only 1 tier. You can still scale them, but only as 1 tier.
So I can't speak to the services not being supported in WAP. I'll direct that question to Microsoft. But as far as the BAAS, the new BAAS, the resource provider that we showed today, that itself is not dependent on service templates in VMM. Just to clarify that, the service templates was if you are going to spin up, like automate your provisioning of DPM servers themselves.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, but that's just not supported, sadly. You need to use VM roles. Another question. WAP is being discontinued, being replaced by the Azure Stack.
So we've already been asking that question to Microsoft, like, okay, you're building this here now. When you come out with the new portal, is it going to be ported over? So we don't know the answer to that question yet, but I'm pretty sure that investment will carry over to the new Azure Stack.
Okay.
So.
What was the last question? Yeah, your backup, you only showed backup of standalone VMs. The nature of VM roles and the scalability of VM roles, you don't have control of the individual VMs. So when you scale up, you get a new one. When you scale down, it'll delete whichever one Azure Pack wants to delete. So it's not going to delete the last one. So when you have backup configured for VM roles, has that been thought into it, or are you only considering backup for standalone VMs?
As of right now, it's just for standalone VMs, but that's great feedback. You should send that over so we can make sure Microsoft takes that into consideration.
We'll take it offline afterwards.
Okay.
Super. Thank you. And there's the question.
Yeah, the backup of the VMware, will it go through the Virtual Center?
Through vCenter?
So the question was, how will the experience, or how will it work?
I believe it will be integrated with vCenter.
So
Shrish, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Is this working? Yeah, the experience is going to be just like a Hyper-V VM. It'll look like inside DPM server, you can discover VMware VMs. You can directly talk to either vCenter or an ESX host, and it'll be agentless just like it is. In VMware Hypervisor, you can directly use those APIs to back up VMs running on an ESX host. So in DPM, like you have to deploy agents on the Hyper-V hosts before it can discover VMs. In VMware, you don't need to do that. So you just have to point it to the vCenter or an ESX host, and it'll discover all the VMs. And then you can select protection just like you do of Hyper-V VMs. After that point, it looks like anything else. So all your tape recovery points, you can send it to Azure. You can pretty much treat it like any other Hyper-V VM.
And also we have the auto protection.
I'm sorry?
And also we have the auto protection when you click the entire folder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, the VMware has this thing where you could deploy VMs inside a folder. They treat it like a file folder. And you can select the whole folder to protect. And then if you add new VMs to it, it auto-protect it. So it'll take the policy from that folder. This doesn't exist in a Hyper-V VM because that feature doesn't exist in the hypervisor. So wherever we can take advantage of the hypervisor, VMware hypervisor, we'll leverage that. But the experience looks like a Hyper-V VM, very similar to how you protect it. So everything else. No, there's an API that you can call to do the backup. So we can do a snapshot on that VM on the ESX host, and then we back that up. So essentially, that's how it works. It doesn't go through the vCenter. It just uses the vCenter to discover the VM. But once it knows the VM, it knows how to do a backup.
Any other questions?
There's one. Hey.
Hi, I got two for you. The first one is there any planned support for DPM to be able to back up to like CIFS devices for storage instead of having to have a block level device that's presented to the OS?
We have said that information to Shrish, that we want that. So do you have any feedback on that, Shrish?
SIP backup onto a SIP device or backup data that's on a SIP device?
Back up to a CIFS device. So like Dell's DR4100 that they sell, that kind of thing. An appliance sort of thing that does its own dedupe and compression, that sort of
It's a
thing.
pretty common ask.
Not on the plan yet. We have heard that from people that they want that.
Okay. And then the other is, I was just wondering, what's the upper scale as far as DPM goes with regards to how many VMs you can back up on a given DPM server?
Could you repeat the question?
I was just wondering what the scale is as far as DPM, as far as how many VMs you can back up on a given DPM server.
So we have this feature called collocation, and if you collocate it, you can have 1,000 SQL databases, 2,000 clients, and 3,000 Hyper-V guests.
How many VMs is that? Only 800 is on, right? Is it? I think it's 800.
Yeah, 800. Sorry, yeah, 800
800?
per VM if you use the collocation feature. Yep.
Okay, okay. I asked because we had PSS come out and they told us that anything over 100 is not a good idea, so.
Okay. So that's, you can do more than 100.
Okay.
Yeah, no problemo.
At the start of the talk, you sent in restores from a previous backup system into Azure.
Right.
And I was wondering, what do you get when you send it into Azure? Do you get restore points from earlier time, or?
So so the question is, if we have already existing data I'm uploading to Azure and I would like to restore it, what kind of data I'm getting, right? So we now actually, if it's SQL data, we'll get SQL data. If it's SharePoint, we'll get SharePoint data. Today, Sharish just announced that actually we're supporting SharePoint point recovery point. Actually, you can support it. You can restore from online protection to the SharePoint farm, right?
But can you make it the recovery point from years ago or something? Can you indicate that?
We already have 99 years LTR now, so the first part, it will be the first year, right, that you upload. But after that, you will have it forever. But the data that you already uploaded, you'll be able to recover it at any time.
You would see the moment in time that it was actually made, the backup.
I'm not sure of that. Do you have any comment about this, Sharish? So the data that we upload today using the offsite
something that you have today that was much older. Yeah.
right.
That was the example you gave.
I didn't test the scenario, but I can get back to you about it. But the data, I know that you're trying to say the date stamp that you want to see. Let me get back to you about this.
It would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, sure.
Sir.
Does any of the two both comes out on backup on SQL server?
So the question was, does any of the two books sort out these challenges regarding SQL backup? And the answer is yes. My book. Any other questions? If there's none, the three of us would love to say thank you for attending our session. Have a great Ignite.